A good Erev Shabbos, Parshat Vayelech. So I still remember that first time that I went to the 𝗟𝗘𝗧 with my children when they were around the ages of, I think they were like 4 and 5, 4 and 5. And I remember this experience. I remember being very excited. I'm going to bring them, and they were old enough that they can speak. And like now they can really have this spiritual experience here at the 𝗟𝗘𝗧. I brought them as little babies, but they just sat there, in the baby carrier. And I'm going to have this 𝗟𝗘𝗧𝗦 davening. It's going to be this biggest arus. Very uplifting. And it was, for the first few seconds. And then my children, Baruch Hashem, they were children. Tap on the back, I think this one had to go to the bathroom. This one wanted to eat, its pretzels. This one wanted a cookie. Then the other one wanted a cookie. It wasn't that long before I just, messaged my wife and told her, why don't you take the kids for a little bit while I try to have my spiritual moment. And I'm not sure if this is just my kids. I think other people have had this experience as well. Some people have it every single Friday night at Kiddush, where children just seem to be children, despite it being Rosh Hashanah. But what's taking place over here? Once every 7 years, Be'ezus Hashem, it should take place this Sukkot. We have this Torah of Hakel, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us once in every 7 years, He wants to bring this big gibush, this big, bringing everyone together to the Beis Hamikdash, and who's invited? Okay, not just Rabbanim, Anashim, and Nashim, of course, women, Vataf, and the babies too. And this mitzvah of Hakel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I want them all there. Yeah, the 5-year-old, the 3-year-old, the 6-month-year-old, right, the 7-day-year-old. Believe, every baby, Hashem wants all of them to be there. What was HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinking? And I hope it will happen soon. I want to find out what's really taking place. Perhaps there's this Or the Beis Hamikdash and all the children are so quiet. So, there's a Torah I saw in a Sefer My Initial Torah. I believe he brings it from the Sfas Emes. It says, the truth is that it wasn't so quiet. No, children would be children. Children would be children. And the message was that perhaps the person might think that when it comes to such an experience, once in 70 years, we're going to have this arus. It's going to look like us flying on some type of a cloud, with some Or Elyon coming down, with Nigudim. But what really took place were kids nagging on our robes, and poking at us and crying, and this one took place because that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. And I think as we roll over, as is Hashem, into Yom Kippur, and we start to think about what Avodas Hashem is meant to look like. I remember this story I was told by Rav Dov Brizak. They said about 𝗟𝗏. For those of you who may know, 𝗟𝗏 is a 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦, 𝗍'en kamo, is dveikus, to see him, to say a bracha, to see him daven. Right? There are people that travel just to see him shake lulavim. I believe he breaks many lulavim during his nanuim, every single day. And mamash b'dveikus elyon. And Rabbi Rizak said that one time that he was there, and he saw mamash in the middle of Hallel, or 𝗟𝗏, we can't understand this. Mamash like dveikus elyon, on the stage, the platform. A little kid walks over, starts tugging, one of his children tugs her at 𝗟𝗏, and everyone's watching. What's going to happen? And they see how 𝗟𝗏 just picks up his talis in the middle of his Hallel. I don't know where he was up to. Obviously, it was halachically permitted what he was doing. In the middle of his Hallel, in the middle of his tzveikos, he's like listening, and he goes and he takes money out of his pocket and he gives it to his kid. And afterwards, they found out that his kid wanted to go to one of these Chalamoid events. So who do you go to? You go to Tati, of course. And he was speaking about how it's amazing to see a tzaddik that could be on the top of Har Sinai, right, and to also have his, sulam of arza, rosh megiah shemayim, but that there isn't a difference. And what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us to have a spiritual experience may not always look like what we think a spiritual experience is. And I thought perhaps that this is maybe the reason why we have a smichas parshias, why we find this mitzvah of Hakel coming right where it does, here, in the parsha. Where Moshe Rabbeinu starts off in this parsha, part of his farewell address to the Jewish people. And what does he say to them? He says, listen, Chevra, I'm not coming with you. But you know what's going to happen when you cross that Yarden? There's going to be war. And we find this lashon, this word, chazak v'amatz. Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jewish people, he says to Yehoshua a few psukim later, and we find he says to Yehoshua over and over and over again in the Navi, and Kadosh Baruch Hu says it to Yehoshua, chazak v'amatz, be strong, be consistent, have resilience, be courageous, but chazak v'amatz. What was Moshe Rabbeinu trying to tell them? If we think back 40 years before, we know that when it came to the Chayim and Meraglim, it wasn't just the Jewish people, they were afraid of the war, what they were afraid, they didn't think, they saw Kadosh Baruch Hu do all the makas, what, he's afraid that he can't kill a bunch of Canaanim. So as we explained in the Beis Medrash, a few different contexts, perhaps in the Parsha Shir as well, in Parsha Shlach, Mamash, just very, very short right now, it says that the Jewish people weren't just afraid, they were afraid of the war. They were afraid of what existence was going to look like when they would leave the Midbar. They would leave being in the Beis Medrash. They were going to go out to work. They were going to be involved in Gashmias. Because being involved in Gashmias, you need to be told Chazak v'amatz. Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to give a message, and perhaps the reason why this is connected right to this parsha over here of Hakel, because just like the spiritual experience of Hakel may not look like what we think it is like, and the spiritual experience of being a parent at a Shabbos table and a Pesach Seder doesn't always look like what we think it might look like when we were, a bachar in yeshiva or a girl, a girl in seminary. It can be messy, really, like ketchup being flung at the table, messy, really messy. Being involved in Gashmias can be messy. And the message Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Yehoshua, telling Am Yisrael, he's telling all of us, Chazak v'amatz. It may look messy. It may look messy. It doesn't look like, in the Ilan Yom Kippur and Shul. It doesn't look like that when you go home during the break on Yom Kippur. It doesn't. It doesn't look like that always. It could look messy. Being involved in Gashmias has its challenges, but you should be strong, because know that this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. And I saw a beautiful pshat, I believe also from the 𝗧𝗦 𝗦𝗧, where he says that when it comes to tshuva, when it comes to standing before HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us here to the world. Hashem, he says, B'etzem Yisrael, Nishmas Yisrael, shaychus to being here in Olam Hazeh. We come from a higher place. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us here like a person who sends, a rescue team to go pull people out of the sewage, to pull people out of the mud. And when you pull things out of the mud, when you're saving people's lives, in a mudslide, guess what? You're going to get filthy. You're going to get dirty. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu recognizes that He sent us here to do His work in Olam Hazeh, to be involved in Gashmias, to uplift all of creation. And He knows He knows we can get dirty. He knows we can get dirty. We know it doesn't always look the way that we think it's going to look like. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I want to be matahar you. Yom Kippur comes, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu set into the system a way that I'm going to clean you. I want to clean you because I know that you're doing this for me. But as Hashem, we should all roll into Yom Kippur clean. We wear a kittel until it gets dirty. But we wear a white kittel, we should go and clean it, we should go with confidence, and we should feel good, and we should know that even if our Yom Kippur doesn't look the way that we thought it was going to look like, right, and our days rolling up to Yom Kippur doesn't look like the way that we thought it might look like, we should know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is proud of us, and we should be proud of ourselves. Have a wonderful Shabbos.